Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I'll be wrapping up the pairs season, doing my season's best list of the top pairs programs this season through my eyes, as well as ranking the top 10 teams this season. So, when I think about what programs are worthy of being on a season's best list, I'm really looking at great choreography, really nice musicality, performing really from the beginning of the program to the end of the program. A lot of times we'll see teams just sort of go through the motions while they're going through the elements. In the last minute of the program, they really come alive. And I'm really looking for programs that excite me from the beginning all the way to the end. And then bonus points for really great music choices. So the performances don't necessarily have to be clean. That is great in a perfect world. But a lot of time with peers, we have teams who never go clean in a particular program throughout the entire season, but you can still see the quality and the program still really stands out even despite the mistakes. So this season, I actually selected 12 different programs. Ordinarily, with my season's best list, I will only pick one program from each team. Last year, I made an exception for men's, and I had two of Jason Brown's programs in my season's best list. And I'm going to make an exception for this list as well, but we'll talk about it when I get there. So, without further ado, let's talk about this year's top 12 programs and pairs. So, the number 12 program, I picked Mel Tikana and Buralava's short program to a summertime cover from Billy Stewart. And this particular program was a bit of a surprise when I was going back and watching lots of different programs and compiling this list. I did not expect this one to end up on my list because I made mention on the podcast I thought their music was annoying. I still think it's annoying. Their costumes are very kind of strange and out there. I still think they are. But what really stands out in this program is their confidence, and everything is so well done. Their elements from their step sequence, their death spiral, their side by side spins, and of course, their technical elements are all really super strong in this particular program. And it really made them stand out in both juniors and as well in seniors. They scored really well. Not as successful at times with their free skate, but this particular program was really super strong. And programs that really help to show some of the best qualities of a team are some of the programs that really stand out over the course of the season. And so, surprisingly, my number 12 team is the Georgians and their short program. My number 11 program is from Danilova and Seba of the Netherlands, and they are making their second appearance on my season's best list. Their free program was on my season's best list last season. Also, this year's free skate was To the Chain by Fleetwood Mac, which is a really different, unique kind of song choice, and it also really fits their style really well. I think that this particular program really showcases their abilities really well. They have really huge throws. At times, the side by side jumps aren't always there, but they're a team that every time I see them out and every time I would see this performance, and they had a good short program too. It was just repeated from last season. But I feel like their team does a really good job with their packaging, their costumes, their choreography. But even when they make mistakes, I'm still really enjoying watching them skate. And that's really, again, what makes a program stand out. And so this is a team that is on the cusp. If they could be more consistent technically, they could start to really contend for podiums at Grand Prix. They have some really, really great bones. It's just the consistency that sort of holds them back, and that lack of consistency that keeps them from scoring as well when they do really well. But you watch this program, and I think it will it'll be enjoyable for you. It's not a program that you're going to really zone out of, and they're a really enjoyable team to watch. All right, my number 10 program is Alicia Efimova and Misha Mitrofanoff of the US. And this was their long program to Iron 2021 by Woodkid. So this is a team we didn't see very much this season. So they were unable to compete internationally. That will change in this coming season. So we will get to see them. It looks like they're getting new programs, or at least one new program they've already posted that they're worked with Renee Roca for at least one of their programs coming up. I thought both of their programs that they did at nationals were really strong. I really enjoyed the short program as well. I think what stood out to me in the free skate was, for one, Alicia is someone who is gorgeous skater, really does the ballet and the ballads and the slow pieces really well. But she doesn't always have that same performance quality when her previous partners have done other types of pieces of music in the past. And so this particular piece of music has a lot of drama in it. And she really embraced it. And it's a side of Alicia I feel like we haven't really seen. We've seen Misha at times really be super strong. I feel like with his previous partnership with Audrey Liu, he was the more dynamic performer. It's amazing to me, like, how well this team gelled. I probably is that Russian background that they both have. While Alicia is born in Finland and she competed for Germany, I believe she's also competed for Russia as well. She's definitely got Russian parents, and so does Misha. And so they just sort of have that Russian aesthetic, and they just gel together so well. They're very, very well matched, and both of their programs I feel like did a really good job of showing that. A lot of times in the first year of a partnership, they just look a little bit awkward, and they look like a seasoned pair already. Strong lifts, really nice, strong choreography. I really liked their choreographic sequence in this program. I thought they had a nice entry also into their pair spin. And it was skated really well at nationals. Frankly, I thought they should have won the national title in pairs. I thought they were by far the strongest team in that free skate, but that's a conversation that I've had on the podcast already. But this program, even in the few times that we've seen it this season, a couple of domestic events to qualify for the US Championships. And really, it was its best at the US Championships when they had the most difficulty, because during the qualifying process, they were doing double jumps and single axles. And so I was actually really surprised that they did two side by side triple jumps in this free skate. And Alicia actually did them fairly well for her. So I'm really excited about the potential of this team and getting to see them in the Grand Prix this season. So see them internationally compete and see if they can really build on the success that they've already had. So yeah, just from their nationals performance, I thought this was one of the 10 best pair programs that we had this season. And it's unfortunate we didn't get to see it internationally, but I hope that you can go back and see it and appreciate it for what I feel like it was this season. The number 9 spot is another US pair, and this was Emily Chan and Spencer Akira Howe. This was their short program to Elvis Elections, Fever, and I've Got a Feeling. And they're a team that we also didn't get to see a lot internationally this season. Spencer had surgery, and they were out for a very long period of time, the entirety of the fall. And by the time that nationals rolled around, I believe they had only been back on the ice for about a month together. And they only did the short program at nationals. So we only saw their free skate at Worlds, which is to Exogenesis number 3, which had some nice moments in it, but it was very messy. But this short program, I thought, had a lot of personality and a lot of potential. And it's one that I kind of hope that they keep and do next season, because we didn't see it a whole lot this season. And so they did like a really fiery short program last year that was really entertaining. I believe it was on my season's best list last year as well. This one I liked even more because I felt like we get to see the showman that Spencer is, and he is very much like hamming it up and just at a 10 for, especially during their step sequence, which sort of at a point in it almost looks like a character step from Ice Dance. They're really just sort of taking that moment to really perform, and I love the whole choreography that they do. This particular program was best performed at nationals with all of the questions and worries about whether or not his shoulder was going to hold up during their lift or not. It wasn't as successful at Worlds, but still really, really entertaining. And they just bring a ton of personality into this program. And I think it's one that can develop and grow a little bit if they do bring it back next year. And if they decide to do a different one, I hope they keep it as a showpiece because it really is a lot of fun. All right, my number 8 program is Beccari Ungheresi of Italy. And this is not their free skate. Don't worry. This is their short program to run by Ludovico Unati, which is very popular skating music because it's beautiful and it has a lot of really great runs in it. There's a lot of opportunities to really use the music and show off your musicality, which they do in this piece very well. This is a program that didn't have to grow on me. The very first time I saw it this season, I was already impressed and really, really enjoyed it. I think their best version of it was probably in the Grand Prix. Definitely wasn't at Worlds, and I thought it was pretty strong at Europeans as well. It didn't really score as well as I thought perhaps it could have, because they would have some level issues here and there, some issues on their side by side spins, but the program itself is really, really gorgeous. My only complaint is it has like these weird rain sounds at the beginning of the program, and I'm not really sure what that's supposed to do for it. But other than that, they just have this really great glide across the ice. Again, you just don't really see in the free skate, but it's showcased so well in the short program. And I think that all the elements just really flow together really well. There's no like real start stop moment to it. It just sort of makes this complete package, this like complete song almost. I think their footwork sequence is one of the best footwork sequences in the short programs for any pair team this season. It just goes really well with the music. And so this to me was always a really standout routine for me. And I certainly appreciate that they went a different route in the free skate, but I think this style suits them really, really well. Doesn't mean they can't do other things. This is the first year that we have seen this team together. And so super impressive for them to have a routine that ends up on a season's best list because it is so strong. And I'm super excited to see what they can do next year if they take this style and maybe make it into a free skate and what that could look like. All right, my number 7 program is from Chelsea Liu and Balazs Naz, also of the US. Who knew the US would have so many teams on the season's best list? And unfortunately, this team has since split. Chelsea decided to step away to focus on her mental health. And so we haven't heard yet of any potential partners for Balazs. So this was a very short lived partnership. They actually paired up, I think, in May. And then here we are in April, and they didn't make it quite a year, but I thought they made a really great impression in the year that they did. And for me, their more successful program was their short program to dive by Ed Sheeran. And the music is great for starters. The costumes are great. Their chemistry is really good. But what really stands out to me in this program, especially the way that it was performed at like Skate America or at Four Continents, is Chelsea. And she just has a joy in her skating that just really shines at different times. At nationals, maybe not at their best. She looked really stressed there, but in a couple of competition this season, like the two I just mentioned, this program was just a real standout, and they had a season's best to this. At Four Continents, they actually got a small medal. They got a bronze medal for finishing third in the short program at Four Continents, because it's just such a strong program. I mean, obviously they start out with that huge twist right off the bat that everybody loves. And Their side by side jumps, especially hers, are not always very consistent, but at times they have a really nice throw. But I really love their side by side spins. I love their lift. I love the in between moments in this program. And I just feel like it, like I think I mentioned during the Nationals episode, like I could just watch Chelsea and Balaj just do stretching exercises. Like they just have, it obviously wasn't meant to be, but at least for the year that they were together, they did have some really beautiful moments. And I thought this program was just a really fantastic choice for them. It was choreographed really well. And it's number 7 on my list, which is pretty high. All right, my number 6 program is Rebecca Gilardi and Filippo Ambrosini of Italy. And so this is their long program to selections from Bram Stoker's Dracula. And their short program was actually really strong too. I could have gone really either way, but for me, it was kind of always going to be Dracula just because I'm such a huge fan of the soundtrack myself. They start with The Brides, which is just fantastic skating music. Like some of my favorite soundtrack music that I have, and it's one of those pieces of music that I've always wanted to see skaters use, especially a pair team. Like it's music that you would almost expect to see out of an ice dance team, but for a pair team, it's just really really cool. And I also love The End, which is the Vampire Hunters, which is kind of this ominous kind of music and very dramatic. And so they really bring a lot to the table in their performances. I feel like of the 3 Italian teams that they are the most expressive of them. And while they certainly struggle at times with the side by side jumps, especially for Rebecca, like it was kind of the same way last year. Like they can go out and have some struggles early in the program, and by the end of the program, you have totally forgotten of it because they have just kind of like drawn you into to that performance. They had a really strong free skate at Grand Prix final, and I think their best version of this was at Europeans because that's really the performance where Rebecca's side by side jumps were the cleanest and the less distracting with the leg wrap. I love the first lift that they do in their free skate, that reverse group 5 lift. It's just like right on the music. I think the slow section in the middle just really works. That's the one selection that they have that doesn't specifically come from Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it still fits with the other 2 pieces of music, despite the fact that it's not from the same soundtrack. And then the last minute is it just builds and builds and builds and ends in this really great ending pose, which I think people don't utilize enough, having a great starting pose or a great ending pose. And so this I actually thought was probably going to be a little bit higher, but when I started to go back and look at some other programs, I ended up having more programs that I liked ahead of this one. But for me, this was always a standout all season. I'm of course bummed we didn't get to see it at Worlds and get to see. We did have one showdown of the 2 vampire programs at one of the Grand Prix. Not really the greatest outing for either one of those 2 programs, but at least we did get to see it once. And who would have thought we would have had 2 vampire programs in pairs this season? And they were both fabulous. And spoiler alert, they're both on my season's best list. All right, moving on to our top 5. The number 5 program, I have Ping and Wang of China, and this is their short program to the Storm Driven Sea. They're another team that I thought had 2 really good programs. Their free skate to the Sorcerer's Apprentice is also really fantastic, but I really preferred this one of the 2 if I have to pick one, just because of, again, they're just bringing in the drama for me, and they use all of the different dramatic beats of the music so well. Like there's a point when they're in their side by side spins and they come out of them and there's this beat of the music and they have their arms out and it's just like this emphasis, and I just love it. I love the ending pose where she's got her leg up in the air and he's holding her hands behind her back, and it just feels like it's just building building building, and then it's like boom, and it's like, oh no, it's over. So it, and of course their throws are gorgeous. Obviously, they had struggles on the side by side jumps all season. Part of that was she had ankle injury, and so the triple toe was very difficult for her. She doesn't have a triple Salchow in her wheelhouse that she can rely on to do another triple jump, unfortunately. So hopefully next season that'll be healed up a little bit better. But loved both of their programs, but this program especially I thought was just really fantastic. They won NHK Trophy. They didn't win NHK Trophy. They won the short program at NHK Trophy with this routine. And I think that was probably the strongest rendition of this that we saw all season. Also did pretty well with it at Cup of China also. But really enjoyed seeing a high quality Chinese pair once again, because we got sort of like very little Chinese pairs last year. And then when we did see them at Four Continents, it was like, yes, it was great to have Chinese pairs there, but they definitely were not at the quality that we're used to seeing. They had great throws, but everything else was just kind of a step or two behind what we would normally expect. And then when Ping and Wang came at Cup of China, it was like, oh, okay, this is what we're used to seeing from Chinese pairs. And no, they're not still completely back yet. And I think they were definitely disappointed with both their Four Continents and their world's placements. But I'm not worried. I think if they continue to make improvements, especially in their twist, that they can, I expect nothing less than fabulous programs again from them next season. And I also really like that she looks at him a lot in the performance, because I feel like it just sort of helps that overall connection and helps to sort of draw you in a little bit more as you're watching it. It doesn't feel like it's two people that are skating together. It feels like one team skating together. All right, so moving on to number 4, and this was probably about as big as a surprise as Meltikana and Buralava being in my top programs, and that is Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea, and this is their short program to East of Eden. So yet another American pair team here, and I think because a lot of the American pair teams, while they leave a lot to be desired in the actual technical performances, a lot of them actually have really strong programs that are very well choreographed. Unfortunately, at times they're just not skated well. So with this particular program, it wasn't ever skated cleanly because, as I have mentioned various times on the podcast, Ellie really struggles with the throw jump, whether it's the Salchow or the loop. But everything else that they're doing is really fantastic, and it really shines in their short program, because we just talk about East of Eden for a second. You've got this fantastic piece of music that, even if someone said to you East of Eden and you couldn't hum the theme, like when you hear the music, it just like takes you back to a different time of skating, right? And so they have this fantastic music, and then their elements are really, really strong. I mean, their side by side jumps were greatly improved this season, and they are just right on sync with each other. And the lift that they do at the end of the program is so fantastic. Like coming from that spread eagle, it's just really a wow moment in that program. Plus the step sequence in there with it, everything just really works. If you just close your eyes when they do the throw, you would be like, this program could compete with some of the best in the world. And it can. I mean, they're a landed throw jump away from being able to score 70 points in a short program if they have quality programs like what they had here. And I hope that we see that. I really hope that next season that we can see the same quality here that we had in this program, just with the landed triple throw. Because Ellie is such a lovely skater. I think she's a really great pair girl, and I think they have just a gorgeous exit out of their death spiral, and I love the exit out of the group 4 lift as well. Just the whole program just really, really works, like I said, with the exception of that throw, and it's not enough to damage the program. Like the quality of it is still there. And so it was number 4, very, very high on the list. All right, moving into our top 3. The number 3 program is from Annika Hawk and Robert Kunkel of Germany. And this is their short program to I Love Rock and Roll and Black Betty. So they also were on my season's best list last year with their long program, which they're doing again this year. But this short program was one that had to grow on me because when they debuted it at a challenger early in the season, I was like, I don't get it. I don't like the song choice. I don't like the style. It's just not working for me. And then the second time I saw it, I didn't really feel a whole lot different. When I really started to change my opinion of it was when they did it at Skate America. And even with the fall on her side by side triple sow cows, it was just like a moment in the arena. They excited the crowd unlike any other team had done that day. And that's when it started to grow on me. And every time I've seen it this season, it's gotten a little bit better. And then by Worlds, it was just lights out because Annika finally landed that triple sow cow that she had been struggling with all season. When that throw flip is on, it is fantastic. And they just have so much great energy that they're bringing into it. And again, I love the contrast in what we see from them in the free skate versus what we see in this program. It shows a lot of range. They just look big and powerful and fast. I actually really like the change to Black Betty because it comes on right as they're in the middle of their lift, and so they use the music there real well. They're another program that I feel like just has a really strong footwork sequence. I think even from the beginning, like they set the tone very early on with the beginning pose. And you don't immediately know that they're skating to I Love Rock and Roll because there's just like this 10 seconds of kind of like music that you're kind of trying to figure out exactly what this program is going to be. And so I love that kind of little pop of surprise as well. So yeah, this program really grew on me and it ended up being, only behind two really fantastic programs from our world champions. So I said earlier that I was going to make an exception for pairs. I'm not going to do it for any other discipline, but I really felt like Deanna and Max had the best two programs in pair skating this year. And I was going to do a disservice by only picking one of them. So I picked both of them, and they're the top two programs this season. So the first one, the number two program, is their short program to Oxygen, which is from the Cirque du Soleil soundtrack. And it's music that I had never heard of before. And I think it's music we're probably going to hear again sooner rather than later because it is fantastic music. I love like the breathy start just at the beginning. I love the beginning pose, and it's just big, powerful, and dramatic. I love how they use their arm motions at times to sort of even like really emphasize the swells in the music. I love that they do the throw jump a little bit later in the program as opposed to in the beginning. And the lift that they do, they also do the same lift in their free skate as their ending lift. Fantastic positions. This program really showcased all of the improvements that they made over the off season because I thought their programs last year were okay. I certainly preferred the tango over the Egyptian Cleopatra program that she did for the free skate. But what they really just like brought out all the stops for this season, and whatever they come up with next season are, they're going to have a hard act to follow because these are two really, I think, iconic programs and probably are, maybe not will be the best two programs of their career. Maybe they'll find a way to top them. But right now, I feel like they're pretty hard acts to follow. And my number one program was their free skate to Interview with the Vampire. And this is one kind of like Honkin' Kugel's program that had to grow on me a little bit because when I first saw it at Autumn Classic, I was like, they had acting classes for what? I don't get it. I don't see the vision. This is weird. And then by Skate Canada, I was like, this is the program of the year. Like nobody is going to beat this if they skate like this all season. And they didn't skate like it all season, but they were very difficult to beat along the way. I think the only time they lost this season was at Grand Prix Final. everything else they won, they weren't always at their best, but this program was always exciting even when they weren't at their best. So I mean, I you tell me, a program that had the story that this one did where she's turning him into a vampire. And obviously they had, a few wardrobe issues earlier in the season. They couldn't quite get the shirt open, or the shirt wasn't opened enough. And, we were trying to figure out, what was it supposed to be? When did it happen? And they worked out those kinks and it made a lot more sense from like Grand Prix final on. But yeah, just really exciting. Again, totally different music than what we've seen before. Like again, I'm sure somebody somewhere has skated to Interview with the Vampire, maybe, but I can't remember whenever they did. And I don't know that it works for everybody either, but it totally worked for them. And I love, as I've said all season, that putting those two throws later in the program, it just ramps up the drama so much better. And just gutsy to pick this kind of music. Uh, but it just all worked, and it just all really came together. And it was so exciting, especially at Worlds, which is definitely their best performance of this program. Just nothing was going to top that moment, right? I think it's a program that you're going to remember from years to come, and it's going to stand out in that moment that it created. When you have great programs like that, you're also really going to remember. So those are my top programs for pairs. So let's talk about my end of the season rankings of pairs. And this one wasn't easy to do because we didn't have a really consistent, like, this is the number one pair team all season. We kind of had Hasi and Boladin really kind of came out of the gates really strong in the fall season. And I think Deanna and Max definitely had the second half of the season. But overall, I think you can't really go with anybody else in the number one spot except for Deanna and Max, because they were largely undefeated most of the season. And you kind of felt like if they were at their best, they were going to win. And so definitely they were the number one pair team this season. In the number two spot, I do have Minerva Hasi and Nikita Volodin of Germany, and they were super strong. I mean, really outside of Europeans, which that free skate just appeared to be a bit of a fluke. They were unbelievable in their first season together. And I think sometimes we forget that this is their first season together, and they had the success that they had, winning two Grand Prix, winning Grand Prix final, and then getting on the podium at Worlds is absolutely huge. And yes, they ultimately lost to Miura and Kihara at Worlds, but Miura and Kihara were absent for the majority of the season. So I have Miura and Kihara third because they cannot be denied. They are arguably the best team in the world when they are clean, and they almost made things very interesting at the World Championships after having a very underwhelming and injury-ridden season. But they were very underwhelming at Autumn Classic and very underwhelming at Four Continents, and really just kind of pulled two performances out of the hat at Worlds. And so they're still in my top three, but I feel like the other two teams definitely had a stronger season than they did. In fourth place, I have Pavlova and Sievchenko of Hungary, who I have, definitely given a lot of criticism for their choreography and their programs, which I feel like have been very empty at times, but their technical elements just can absolutely not be denied. And their consistency, very impressive. I mean, this team was fourth at Grand Prix final. They were fourth at Europeans. They were fourth at Worlds with big scores on their way there. And I think they're a team that continues to be on the rise if they can put some effort into those program components. They could be world medalist next season, and that's not crazy to say because a lot of their technical elements have really unmatched by a lot of these other teams that are even ahead of them. You don't typically see under rotation calls and a lot of mistakes from this team, and so that really helped them with their consistency all year. And for me, they're just right underneath these top three as the fourth best team that we saw this season. In fifth, boy, once you get past the top four, I have to say, it was hard compiling this list of 10 because you start to get into a lot of inconsistencies. I went with Rebecca Gilardi and Filippo Ambrosini. And I went with them because 2 medals on the Grand Prix. They didn't medal at Grand Prix final, but I do believe they had a really strong free skate there. So it's really just the short program, which I actually thought they were underscored in the short program there. They opted to do side by side double axles, which was a smart choice, I felt like. So they weren't doing the triple. And I just thought they were underscored and kind of almost penalized for that in a way. They were very strong Europeans and made the podium there. They won Italian nationals. Yes, Conti and Michi were not there. They certainly still might have won Italian nationals, even if Conti and Michi were there, based upon how they skated this season. And I just think of the Italian pair teams that they were probably the most consistent. I think the other two were a lot more up and down. I do have Sarah Conti and Niccolo Michi sixth. So right behind Rebecca and Filippo. Their best outing was obviously at Grand Prix final where they were second, and that short program that they had at Worlds is really the best that we saw them all season. Rest of the season was just very up and down. Obviously the Grand Prix was maybe not what we expected because they didn't win any Grand Prix, but they still medaled in both of their Grand Prix and made it to Grand Prix final. So really the biggest disappointments that they had all season were at Europeans and in that free skate at Worlds. And so, but for me, just not as consistent as Rebecca and Filippo, but I'll still put them ahead of some of these other teams on this list because even when they weren't as consistent as we would like to have seen, they weren't like 10th, like some of these other teams, like they were still in the mix. And yeah, I have them in 6th. All right, going from there, again, a bit of a struggle. You could probably go any number of different ways, but in 7th, I put Meltikina and Burlava. Obviously, they were largely on this junior circuit this season, and so you can't really rank junior and senior teams unless you're going to compete with seniors. But when they did compete with seniors, I thought they were very strong at Europeans and at Worlds in the short program. Obviously, the free skate for them went awry. They did have the one win at Warsaw Cup in the fall, which tended to be a little bit higher scoring event. There really weren't any other teams that were going to push them there. So this is kind of the best place to slot them is here in 7th. 8th place, I have Håkan Kunkel, and they made Grand Prix final, but unfortunately for them, they had to withdraw, so we don't know how they would have done if they were there. They had okay Europeans, but obviously not as strong as their medal performance last season. And their best competition was really at Worlds. They also have, of course, won Skate America, which was a really huge for them to win a Grand Prix also. So I've got them 8th. In 9th place, I have the European champions, a third Italian team in the top 10 of Beccari and Garisi. And for me, again, they were pretty decent all season. Couple medals in the Grand Prix, didn't make Grand Prix final, but they were right there in the mix. Had the big surprise win at Europeans where, they had their best performance all season, and some of the other teams ahead of them, like Hasi and Boliden, like Meltikina and Burlava, like Conti and Michi, just didn't do what you would have expected them to do. And so they really capitalized on that. And unfortunately for Worlds, they were kind of about where you would expect. They were about in 9th place, unfortunately for them. So in the top 10, in my last top end of the season top 10, which again, I think is great for a brand new team. They have a tremendous amount of upside for however long that they're going to be paired together. I would imagine that Matteo is trying to get to that home Olympics in 2026, and then Lucretia will have to figure out what she's going to do when he likely retires at that point. But as of right now, they're a bit inconsistent here and there with a lot of their elements, and to be expected a lot of times when you're a first year pair team. And so where does this team go next year definitely is interesting. So they're a little bit further down in my top 10, but they're still in the top 10. And then the 10th team that I selected was Leah Pereira and Trent Michaud. And I had a big high expectations for this team going into the season. Didn't really live up to what I would have expected. At times, they definitely did. I mean, they were very competitive, almost winning Skate America. They won a Grand Prix. They made Grand Prix final, but unfortunately for them, just didn't really have the performances that they would have wanted there or at Four Continents or at Canadian Nationals or really at Worlds either, especially in the short program. And so it was a lot of just not quite where you would have liked to have seen them. They feel like they took a bit of a step back this season from where they were last year. I didn't think their programs were as strong, but I would still put them ahead any of the American teams, some of those teams that are sort of on the cusp, like Golubeva and Geotopoulos more. And so still a very solid team with a lot of potential, just and they eke right into the top 10, just underneath some of these other teams. All right. So that completes my top 10 list and my season's best list for pairs for the 2023-24 season. If you have thoughts on any of this, feel free to or comment. If you're listening on YouTube, or feel free to send me a line, especially on X where I'm very active at Ice Skate Podcast. That's what I am on all the socials or on Instagram. As always, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast, and I will be back with more Season's Best List coming to your podcatcher very soon. Have a great rest of your week.